Sometimes I feel like I just need to sit down and write about what's going on in my life. I've learned lately to just start accepting who I am and stop letting others define who I am. There's always seemed to be a layer of static throughout my life, and it's hard to say where it originated from or how I got it. This static are just thoughts of letting someone down, like I can never make up my own opinions without having some sort of approval from someone, especially my parents. I've always prided myself in life and honoring what my parents ask of me and to do well in school, just the typical things that are expected out of raising children. My parents did an exceptional job of making sure I was always provided for and always happy. They never let anything in my life come without some hard work or lesson to be learned. I'm eternally grateful and appreciative of my whole family and everything. And I think it's this feeling that almost limits me sometime in life. If I go about my entire life thinking that I need to please them and to keep their well wishes, then I'm no longer a person anymore. I'm a slave. I feel like I need to be my own man about things and just start taking some risks in life. I'm always just so content sometimes with just sitting in my apartment for the whole day, just existing on the internet and in a virtual world. I live in a beautiful state, and I've had glimmers during my life where I've met some incredible and inspirational people. I feel like I may sometimes just judge the majority of the population as opposed to just meeting every person and starting out with a fresh slate every time. I'm easily deterred, and I can confidently say that sometimes I give up just a little bit too easy. There are times at work where I will go through surprising swings. I'll deal with a customer and then I shut them out after the first time I try to talk to and open up to them. I mumble disheartening things to myself, and sometimes I can never seem to shake that feeling, at least for a little while. I guess because of that, I can be pretty terrified of rejection too. Everyone is afraid of rejection. I've been in sales most of my life, so I've had my fair share of people telling me no and not always agreeing with my beliefs. I may hate them inside for not agreeing with me, but you simply cannot please everyone. Each and every person on this earth is going to have unique opinions that will not always mesh with others. That's what makes life so diverse. However, I seem to constantly tell myself that we are creatures of habit, and many things that I and everyone else experience in life are things we can't control. We become addicted to the things in life that we do often and that we enjoy. It's merely how we are programmed and how our brain is naturally lazy and always trying to conserve energy, so we stick with the things that we know work and will give us instant gratification. For me, it's knowing that when I'm home, by myself, I'm safe and I feel comfortable. At this point in time, however, I see a major flaw starting to build in my psyche because of this way of thinking. One of my favorite pastimes is watching old videos. They can be home videos or just videos that I've been consistently making for the past 7 years or so. I reflect on the times and situations that I was in during my life that these things were filmed. I also think about what was going on in the world and the state of affairs and what major events have or hadn't happened yet. Thinking about these things fascinates me. I came up with an idea a couple of years ago that originated one night when I was working at AutoZone. It was a slow evening and very few customers were coming in that night, and there weren't many tasks to be done, either out of sheer laziness or I'd already completed them. Anyway, I was staring at some batteries on the shelf and kind of daydreaming, as I normally do, and I started to realize something. Time had almost ceased to exist for a moment. Everything was, of course, motionless. There was nothing alive to me. My brain snapped out of the daydream and I realized that moments had just passed. These precious moments that we barely stop and think about. The moments that passes every time we even start to think about it. I came up with a saying, and I'm not really sure if this saying exists in other form or another, but it goes like this. When you think of a moment, it's already gone. And the moment you think about it again, it's gone. Moments are so precious and almost unable to be replaced, but I found out that my obsession with videography for most of my life has come because of this mindset existed in me already and I never knew about it. All of these concepts existed within me, and it just took that one moment in AutoZone for me to have that revelation where it all made sense to me. Where did it come from? That idea just seemed to spark out of nowhere, with no prior thoughts about it until that moment. Since that time, I can say that it has changed my life, or at least my outlook on certain things. It's a thought that tells me I don't have to be scared about the future. I've lately even held the idea about never truly dying. It's strange because I feel like I've come up with some major concepts during my work at AutoZone for some strange reason. I guess it might have been a result of me hating my job, even though I stayed there for almost 5 years. I came up with this idea when I was texting a girl named Tasha. Her friend had recently passed away and I was doing my best to console her. He was actually trying to kill himself and did actually manage to cause quite a scene at I-25, if I remember correctly. But I digress. Tasha was pretty upset about this loss, and I felt bad for her and empathized with her, because my friend Fermin had died in dramatic fashion in 2006 in front of almost the whole school during our homecoming game. I remember the time as being classified as dark and dreary in my timeline of life. I remember it was in October. I was up in the stands with the band when I realized that the whole stadium had gone almost completely silent. There was a player on the field who was on the ground and hadn't gotten up in quite some time. The players for both teams just kneeled down and waited. I remember that time went extremely slow. Then I had another shocking realization. It was player number 63, Fermin Villalpando, one of my best friends of band class. I became more and more anxious about his condition. Soon the paramedics team who was on site seemed to be checking his pulse and his vitals and began performing CPR. That moment when I saw him put on the stretcher and when they put him into the ambulance made me know without certainty that this wasn't right at all. As I'm writing this, I'm starting to tear up just thinking about the situation again. Anyway, the game was canceled and we went back inside to the band room and everyone was abuzz about what had happened because Fermin was in band with us. Rumors started flying everywhere about his condition and about what some of the football players were saying about it, but I remained positively pessimistic about the situation. I knew that the amount of time that he was laying on the field and the amount of attention that the paramedics teams provided to him was not characteristic of someone who was in good shape being put into an ambulance, because he never seemed to move once. I remember I was walking back to my car alone in the chilly fall air and seeing Fermin's car parked outside where it always was, facing the stadium. My heart grew heavy as I thought about whether he was going to be okay or not. It's only human that I was hoping for the best and keeping my spirits up about the situation, regardless of what everyone else was thinking in the band room. Still, my heart was heavy on the short ride home, and later when I was trying to fall asleep, my girlfriend, who was also in band, called me and told me that Fermin had died. I never heard these words in life of someone close to me, who I knew really well, had died. It hit me like a ton of bricks, and I remember that night I could barely sleep. The next morning, the ominous and foreign feeling lingered with me, and I knew at school it would be a completely different environment than what I was accustomed to. Everyone had already made custom shirts in remembrance of Fermin, and so did I. I remember the story being on the news for several days. He had died from a heart anomaly that was never detected. Everyone knew and loved Fermin because he was such a nice, funny, and sincere guy. He was quiet and reserved, but always knew how to make someone smile. The fact that I'm still writing about this over 7 years later is a testament to that. I do feel pretty bad because during halftime on our field performance, only about a half an hour before Fermin would take his final breaths on that field, I remember making a snide comment about Fermin not coming to the field with us to perform. I remember calling him a traitor, and I don't know why I said it because I rarely speak bad about anyone. It was uncharacteristic of me, and it's almost kind of ironic that soon after I said it, it would affect someone I cared greatly for. I guess there was a minor life lesson to be learned there too. The last part of the experience was the funeral. I remember it was held at church only about 50 yards away from my grandma's house. I went to my friend Dennis's grandfather's funeral when I was in about 5th grade, but his grandfather was cremated, and I didn't have to deal with the pain of seeing a coffin holding the body of my deceased friend in it. It was highly overbearing to me. It was only a couple days after the game, and the whole week had been troubling me to begin with, what with the loss of my first true friend who's ever close to me. It was raining out, and it was the morning time. They created a special day at school with the classes so that the majority of the school could attend the funeral. I remember the church was so filled with people and of family and friends that I had to watch and listen to it from outside of the doors leading into the worship area. I had my custom shirt on for Fermin. The most difficult part for me was when they moved the coffin out and everyone had to create space for it to be brought out of the church. I stood outside the hearse and saw the coffin get loaded into it. Someone made a comment. He always wanted to ride in a Cadillac, but I don't think this is how he would have wanted it. So cliché, but so true. I didn't attend the wake at the cemetery. I knew it would just be too much for me. I was talking to Tasha and I told her that her friend would always be around, somewhere. While I was writing a particularly long part of the text, everything I wrote just seemed to flow and made sense when I wrote it. I told her that, scientifically, matter is neither created nor destroyed. Everything in our world will remain on this world in some form or another. He may have lost human form, but somewhere else, he may be out there living another consciousness as something else. I surprised myself when I wrote this, and I was tickled that it made such clear sense. Since that time when I explained it, I've also held on to this belief system personally, and it oddly gives me a positive outlook on realizing that this isn't my only chance in life, but it's a continuation of a long and beautiful story of the universe. Everything that has been created as a result of the Big Bang is already everything that is out there in the universe. Even if a black hole consumes our galaxy, they are believed to always come out in the end as a new galaxy. Life will have always created as fast as it's destroyed, and that's the beauty of life. It sometimes upsets me that people have such a narrow-minded view of the world and our position in it. We are merely one species on one sustainable rock, in one solar system, in one star group, of one galaxy, of the multitudinous galaxies that exist, and we have no idea what other things exist out there. Our thinking is so finite sometimes to all the possible other life forms and even dimensions that might be out there. Our universe is infinite, and so are the possibilities of it. On one hand, this idea might be curious about my life, but on the other, it gives me hope that there's always a new beginning somewhere out there, and there's a very good possibility that I've already experienced several and don't even know about it.